Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Carrie Cootie, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jen.
Hi there, I'm Jen, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey.
Hey everyone, and welcome back into the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast. Carrie and Jen here, your host, and we have a special guest today. We have Ethan with us, and we spent a good amount of time talking a little bit ago about his story, and it was just amazing. We had a really good time getting to know him, and so we're excited to bring him on so he can share that same story with you guys. It's just one that's driven by the Lord, which we love, of course, and just how we can use natural solutions to just support our bodies and what we're going through. And it's great. So I'm excited to hear from you again, Ethan. And so if you just want to start off wherever would be the best in your story to just help people to get to know you and where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation as well. And for those who know me today, I'm a husband. I have 4 daughters. I live out here in the country. We've got 10 acres, and so we're living a homestead lifestyle here. And my life looks much different than what it did as a teenager. When I was 13 years old, I started experiencing these debilitating neurological symptoms, everything from motor tics, loss of motor function, severe crippling anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, these compulsive intrusive thoughts. And these symptoms came out of nowhere and effectively turned my life upside down. We didn't know what was going on. I didn't know where to turn. The doctors didn't have any answers. And for years, I struggled with this and being misdiagnosed by many of the leading physicians in our area. So we'll talk about what I dealt with and eventually getting the correct diagnosis and figuring out what was going on and a path forward, and all the way up to where I am today and some of the tools and natural solutions I've found that have helped me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to tell this story because, Ethan, I think there's lots of people out there that probably have experienced neurological symptoms before, not knowing their origin. And sometimes there are good natural relief out there that will help support their healing journey. So, do you just want to talk about the whole journey, kind of how, obviously, you mentioned that mainstream didn't really serve you, and how you kind of had to take it into your own hands? And I'd love just to hear a little bit of your background too, obviously, how you found your way to one of the top regenerative farms in the country. That was kind of a cool piece, obviously, because it talks about how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, many times, we go to the doctor, we have a broken arm or a cough or a cold, and we get a splint for a broken arm or we get a medication for the cold, and a few days later, we're fine and off we go. But when you go to the doctor with something that's less understood, maybe less common, particularly neurological issues, it's anyone's guess where you'll end up. And most of the time, the physicians are not prepared to diagnose or treat those conditions. And that was my experience. And when I was 13, this was about 20 years ago. And so PANDAS, the disorder that I was eventually diagnosed with, it was basically unknown at the time. Now, pandas, if you're hearing this, you're probably like, what the heck is pandas? It's not the cute bamboo munching bear that we all know from the zoo, right?
Right.
It raises eyebrows when I say it because it's actually an acronym and it's a mouthful. It's Pediatric Autoimmune Neurological Disorders Associated with Strep. And basically what it is a strep throat infection that causes an unusual autoimmune response in the body, namely excess production of strep throat antibodies. Antibodies are our front line of defense against foreign pathogens, but when they are produced in excess, they can cause problems. And what happens with people who have pandas is those antibodies cross the blood-brain barrier and end up in a part of the body where they do not belong, which is the brain. For me, it was my basal ganglia, which is the motor cortex of the body. So as a result, I was inflicted with motor function issues, motor dysfunction. Really, I had motor tics. I would be stuck if you're not familiar with tics. It's unusual compulsive movements. I would have to pick up my pencil and put it down and pick it up and put it down over and over again. Essentially, every object I picked up, I'd have to toss up in my hand and catch it until it felt just right. Otherwise, I'd have to continue doing this motion, and oftentimes, as a teenager, I'd get stuck in this tics for hours sometimes until I became so exasperated and frustrated that I'd end up, the object would end up sailing across the room and putting a hole in the wall. So it was very frustrating, for not just for me, but for my entire family. I mean, my parents were desperately searching for solutions, right? They wanted to help me. We couldn't find any answers from our doctor, so we were referred to multiple specialists in and out of state. I remember my first trip to the psychiatrist. I was in and out of his office in about 5 minutes, right? It was kind of written off like, oh, you have Tourette syndrome, take these pills, like,
Yeah.
we'll
Mhm.
talk to you in a few months. So I went back home with no real understanding of what was going on. Sure, we got a diagnosis, but I didn't know what caused this. I didn't know, like,
Right.
nobody knew how to cure it. It was
Right.
essentially a
Mhm.
label that was put on me in order to push pills on me. And the medication we tried was an off-label blood pressure medication that had, there some people realized that it could help with tremors and tics, maybe something like that, but it did nothing for me at all.
Mhm.
And so I was left. I mean, I went into that appointment kind of hopeful and left with a distaste for conventional medicine in my mouth. And by the time I was 17 years old, I had been on and off over 40 different prescription medications, none of which did the trick. So I was desperate to find some relief, and I can talk about that. But essentially, none of the conventional treatments worked. So I decided at one point, like, look, enough is enough. I had physician fatigue. I was sick and tired of doctor's appointments and pills and pharmacies, and I was just over it. And so I succumbed to self medication for many years and just finding anything that would kind of take the edge off and help me feel better, and it was not a good path forward. So I needed more or less an overall lifestyle shift. I needed to kind of push back against everything that I had been told about health and wellness and how to live and what society was telling me here on the East, and so that's what led me to the farm. After college, actually, I struggled through high school and college. College was very difficult. It took me 5 years to get my bachelor's degree, but I eventually managed to do it. And I got out of there and I just wanted a reset. So I took a job on the oldest organic farm in the state of Colorado, and I moved out there the day after graduation and just kind of fell in love with the lifestyle out there. As opposed to my college lifestyle, it was relatively low stress. I was working outside, I was working in the soil, getting sunshine, eating farm fresh produce every day, getting physical exercise. It was just a huge shift and change in the way that I had used to live. And you know, like I said, I fell in love with the lifestyle. I felt better. I started feeling more valued, like I was contributing to something greater, working out in nature. It was just a very positive experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's like a ringing endorsement for, really what true health is, right? Being connected to the earth, living living with the circadian rhythm, just being in connection with our environment and your surroundings. You're right, and it's amazing how so you did get obviously, start to get some relief, but so you're working on this regenerative farm. Obviously, your lifestyle is different, the stress is less. So yeah, piece together the story for us how to where you are now from the regenerative farm.
Well, it's funny when before I moved out there, everybody thought I was crazy for wanting to go on a farm. They're like, you just got this bachelor's degree. Shouldn't you be getting a real job? And like, you don't need a degree to go work on a farm. And so, but that's just what I wanted. I wanted a reset. I wanted a change of pace. Um, my wife and I, we weren't married at the time, but when we were dating in college, we had taken an internship on a local homestead farm. And that's kind of when I realized, like, just a few hours a week, man, this is really awesome. I love being out here. I love exerting myself. I love breathing fresh air and working. It was just, it was just different than anything else I had done. And
Mhm.
compared to the IT computer help desk that I was working at JMU, where I just kind of sat in my desk and stared at a screen, I was helping people. Like, don't get me wrong, it was fulfilling in a sense that I could help people, but it was just the phone would ring and it was the same problem over and over again. And I'm just thinking, isn't there a better way? And
Right.
working in agriculture was, at the end of the day, you could look at the field and see the tens of thousands of watermelons you've planted, and it's just such a fulfilling feeling to like see the tangible results of your work.
Mm.
But what really turned the page for me in Colorado was the discovery of I call it nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. Up until that point, I had been self-medicating. I realized in high school that smoking cannabis actually really helped my tics after being on all these pharmaceutical medications. I think it normalized the use of medication and substances for relief in my mind. So the shift to illicit use of cannabis was really no big deal to me. I came from a conservative family, and I can't tell you how many times my mom and dad busted me as a high schooler for smoking. But it came down to one evening I came home from cross country practice, and I was very relaxed. I came down, sat on the couch, and my dad said, "Ethan, have you been smoking?" And I said, "Dad, like, why are you asking me this? Like, you already know the answer." And he said, "Well, you're just so calm. Like, you're not ticking at all. You're very relaxed." And I'm like, "Dad, like, you just figured it out. Like, don't you see? That's why I'm doing it. I'm not just out trying to, party with my friends. Like, this is something
Right.
I'm trying to use because it actually gives me relief." Now, I'm not condoning the use of cannabis, right? There are medical benefits to it, but I think the normalization of cannabis in our culture is a very dangerous area. There are so many other side effects to that use that I experienced: increased anxiety, paranoia, lack of consistency from batch to batch, interactions with law enforcement that spiked my anxiety. There's just so many issues that I did not need in my life. Also, like, the people I was hanging around were probably not that great. Uh, so when I went to Colorado, my motives for moving out there were pragmatic in the sense of, I never wanted to get arrested again. Like, after that experience, so I went to a place where it was more accepted, legalized, and ironically, it was moving out there with that as part of my motives where I was introduced to CBD, which is the non-intoxicating compound in cannabis. It's a powerful anti-inflammatory. It's been shown to reduce anxiety, help with sleep, reduce chronic pain, and pain, and many other benefits, all without the risks of cannabis. You don't have to smoke, right? It can be used orally or topically.
Mhm.
There's no addiction potential. It's very, very safe and benign. It's non-intoxicating. It's safe for everyone. And so when I was out on the farm, the farmer's cousin had a 300-acre hemp farm, and I wanted to see it. I said, "Man, this is what I imagined Colorado would look like. Let me go see this." But then I realized he was actually growing this crop for CBD production, not for THC, the intoxicating compound in cannabis that many people seek it out for. And so I was intrigued. What does this do? And then I remember the first time I ever tried CBD, it was like a wave of calmness went over me. I mean, my anxiety went away. The inflammation in my brain was mitigated to an extent so that my tics went away and I felt better. And I realized that it was actually the CBD and cannabis that was giving me the relief for all these years. And I didn't have to smoke or be high anymore to get these benefits. So that experience changed my life. And now I'm like a huge proponent of not only PANDAS awareness, but using alternative remedies like CBD and other anti-inflammatory supplements to help you progress along your journey.
Yeah, which is huge. I think with, like you said, the widespread use now and distribution of cannabis, people are aware of the cannabinoid system and sort of, but in your experience and maybe your understanding, talk a little bit more just about the cannabinoid system because one of the main, there's cannabinoid receptors on every tissue, right? And one of its major, um, functions is anti-inflammatory. And so can you just talk just a little bit more about how, I'm sure you dug into more of the neurological connection with cannabinoids and inflammation, and how you just put the pieces together for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you can probably tell, I had no idea why this product was working for me in the beginning. I just knew that it worked, and so that's what I stuck with. And that's kind of an indication. Like if you find something that helps you, I mean, I always encourage you to stick with it, right? If it's working for you and it's not causing major problems. Um, with CBD, um, we have learned so much in the last several years. The endocannabinoid system, it was discovered in the early 60s by Israeli scientists, but with the way that society is, it just it needs more research, right? We know that it's real. The endocannabinoid system is the largest system in the body, yet they don't teach it in medical school. There's still this stigma around cannabis, largely led by the pharmaceutical companies, right? Because they know this is like has the potential to cure people, right? But they don't want you to know that, and they don't have a way to monetize that because it's a plant that anybody can produce and grow. So anyway, that's a discussion for another time. But but the endocannabinoid system is a series of receptors throughout your body. I talked on another show recently about how it's similar to the opioid receptor system, in that it's devoted only to the absorption of endocannabinoid compounds, which are they're compounds that very closely resemble the plant-based phytocannabinoids that we've been talking about, THC, CBD, except they're produced naturally within our bodies. So uh, if your body is working at a high capacity, if you have all the inputs you need, if you're living well, your body, mind, and spirit are all happy, you're giving your body the inputs it needs through healthy food and exercise and all these things. Ideally, your body will be producing these endocannabinoids in a way that promotes homeostasis and balance and all these things that we know the endocannabinoid system does for our bodies. But when your health is out of balance, when you're not eating right, when you have chronic inflammation, um, that system can get out of whack, right? And so what you can do is supplement with phytocannabinoids, plant-based cannabinoids such as CBD. So in my case, for many years, I was struggling with chronic inflammation. I was eating too much processed foods. I was eating whatever they fed me at the dining hall. I was living a lethargic lifestyle. I was staying inside much of the time, sitting down, not getting exercise. I was doing a lot of things wrong. And so what happened was my body was deficient in many ways, but
Right.
one of the ways it was deficient is it was not producing these cannabinoids that it needed to feel good and to promote balance. And so I realized when I took CBD products, it restored that balance and helped my endocannabinoid system thrive and feel better. Just as an example, to help you understand a little bit more about the endocannabinoid system, recently we've learned that endocannabinoids are passed down from the mother to the infant through breast milk. So when you see your baby coo, like lay back and coo and smile after finishing off a bottle, like my wife calls it milk drunk, but it's actually less milk drunk. It's more like milk high in a
Right.
sense because you
Sure.
feel so good. The baby is full and happy, and those endocannabinoids are flowing through the baby's body, helping him to feel satisfied and happy, but also to be at balance. Like the endocannabinoid system has been shown to regulate almost all bodily functions, including body temperature, uh, balance, and homeostasis. Like I mentioned, I mean, we've really scratched the surface on what we know about this system, but it's incredible what we're learning.
Yeah, it is incredible what we really even just in the recent past 10 years, what they've uncovered on
Mm.
endocannabinoids and the power of endocannabinoids. And as you said, right, if we should be producing our own endocannabinoids, but if we're not, if we have some sort of stress or multiple stressors, with which most of us do, for your case, it was an immune stressor, that inflammation is high, right, and that cannabinoid system probably isn't working like it could. Um, and so can you talk just a little bit too, probably more about you, obviously your specific condition with pandas, but I know you have a strong autism following too, which is obviously highly neurological. And you said you also had OCD and anxiety. I know a lot of our listeners probably deal with anxiety and overwhelm. Um, yeah, can you just talk a little bit about maybe how can be helped with, or those conditions can be helped with CBD?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, CBD is, I call it nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. With an inflammatory-based illness like PANDAS, it can be incredibly useful in reducing inflammation and helping to dull those symptoms. For many years, I was taking the exact wrong approach, led by the physicians, but because we didn't understand what was going on, I was essentially trying to mask my symptoms with drugs, pharmaceuticals, self-medication. Understanding PANDAS and how it works in the body led me to a different approach where I was not just treating the symptoms, but actually addressing the inflammation that was at the core of my problems, right? Addressing the root issue so that I could reduce inflammation and feel better. And the same is true with pretty much every use of CBD, right? It's not a painkiller. It doesn't target the opioid receptors, or it doesn't uh, mess with your brain chemistry in order to help you like ignore the pain. That actually reduces the inflammation that's causing your pain. Similarly with it works similarly with anxiety, and if it can reduce anxiety, it can also help you sleep better because your mind isn't racing at night. And so there's clinical data to back up all of these claims on how it works. But I do. I have a large following of folks with autism and folks with children with autism who are using this uh, for the exact same reason, right? To help them get a better night's sleep, to help take the edge off. For those who are nonverbal, it can be very frustrating when you're dealing with something and you don't know how to describe that to your caregiver or to your friends. And
Sure.
so to take the edge off your anxiety naturally with something that doesn't interfere with your brain function or your health. It's non-intoxicating. It can be a great solution for those people.
So, okay, we talked about its uses, how great it can be. Now, make the jump for us. So, you're on this regenerative farm in Colorado. How did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Well, it was a bit serendipitous how I got here. Effectively, when I came back from Colorado, it was 2015, and here in Virginia, there was no CBD to be found. I mean, most people still considered it to be marijuana, even though it's not. It was not sold, and so I was kind of desperate. Like, where do I get this stuff? Like, I found out that it helps me. I was relying on it. I didn't want to go back to my old habits, right?
Right.
So I needed to find a source that I could trust that was close to me, and there simply wasn't anything. So I reached out to some friends I had made in Colorado. They graciously sent me a bunch of raw materials, some CBDs, And I started just formulating my own products in the kitchen of the house I was living in on another regenerative agriculture project. And I started making different concentrations of oils and topical salves and lotions and gummies and brownies and any way that I could get it in my body. And pretty soon people took notice, right? Even the most unlikely candidates, like my grandparents, grandpa wanted to rub it into his knees for knee pain relief, and grandma wanted to use it to help her with her sleep at night. And my friends said, "Oh, this is helping you feel better. Like, I want to try it." And so it started to become this thing. And I realized how many people could benefit from this, not just myself. And like I said, here in Virginia, you couldn't get your hands on it, so I decided to start formulating my own products. I opened up a booth at the local farmers market here and started to sell it. And before I knew it, people were asking me for this product left and right. And looking back, it's hilarious because I'm looking at my packaging and my branding, and I don't know how I sold anything. Like a lot.
God had a plan for you, Ethan. He was doing it for you.
Absolutely, a lot has changed, and I think the biggest part of that is learning to embody who I am and who God made me to be in my branding and in my marketing. For a long time, I was just ashamed of what I was dealing with. I was ashamed of who I had become. I did not want to talk about what I was dealing with. I mean, for many years, I didn't even know what was going on. But even after I got the PANDAS diagnosis, I wanted to pretend like everything was fine, like nothing was wrong. It was a daily ask for me. Are you okay? I'd be sitting in class doing my tics, and people would be concerned. Is this guy having a seizure? Is this guy all right? And so they look and say, "Are you okay, man?" And it would just drive me insane. I didn't want to be that guy, like that weirdo ticking and sitting there in class. Can't control his body, can't sit still. I didn't want to distract people. And so I just turned around and said, "Yeah, I'm okay," and just brushed it off. And what I realized is, one, I wasn't helping myself, and two, I wasn't helping others. And by embracing that and saying, now, if someone asks me if I'm okay, I say, yeah, I've got these tics. It's related to like this inflammatory issue. Not only I'm taking the weight off my shoulders because it's not like a load I have to bear. I can say, yes, it's this issue, it's this disease that I have, and like it's okay, right? But now I'm putting myself in a position where I can advocate for myself and bring awareness to this issue and PANDAS and what it is, and perhaps guide others who are walking along this similar journey. Because I've learned a lot. Like CBD has been instrumental in my life in reducing that inflammation and helping me feel better. But it's these overarching lifestyle changes that have made an even greater impact, right? And learning how to be okay with myself, like taking the pressure off, eliminating stress triggers and the things that really bother me, getting rid of those in my life, having a more relaxed lifestyle, eating right, getting rid of sugar and alcohol and inflammatory foods and processed foods, starting an exercise routine, weightlifting, and gaining muscle mass has been incredibly beneficial for me physiologically and mentally. And all these things work together to create a healing journey. And it's possible to heal. I take zero medication, zero pills, right? It's amazing. And so that's what I want to share with others, is that it is possible to heal. Looking back in the midst of my struggle, I mean, I had lost hope for many years. I never thought that I would be in the position I am now. It was a dark, lonely, isolating place for many years, and my parents could relate to that too. When you see your child struggling, it's like you can't do anything to help them. You feel powerless and like a victim, and that's not what we were created to be at all, right? And so for me, if I can take what I've learned and offer people advice and help and just encouragement and offer a product that genuinely helps people and doesn't give them cancer or other negative side effects, like how great is that, right? So I'm super blessed and fortunate to be in that position.
Yeah,
Gosh.
so that's how Green Valley was born. Ethan, do you just want to, we'll link it in the show notes. If you are interested or might have more questions, please reach out to us. Obviously, this is just really an introduction, into CBD and just how powerful it can be for neurological inflammation, related. I mean, PANDAS is nothing, it's a huge deal. And I think, first of all, Ethan, thank you so much for sharing, and being vulnerable. I know sometimes, as you said, it's hard because you feel like
Yeah.
you're, in desperate times and there's not a lot of help, or mainstream can't offer at least what you need. And I think this might be maybe a segue into people for getting them some relief, or they're not able to find the relief. Um, but anyway, so obviously Green Valley is the company that you started basically out of necessity, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the other thing is the supplement industry in general is largely unregulated. It's very
Right.
difficult to find a product you can trust. So now, you fast forward to today, CBD's everywhere, right? And a lot of it's being distributed through smoke shops and like unscrupulous retailers online. Like Amazon, for example, does not allow the sale of CBD products. It's a banned product category. I cannot sell my products through Amazon. Yet you go on there and type in hemp cream, and there's 1,000 results of products who are either mislabeled or there's no CBD in it at all, and you're buying a placebo. So you have to be really careful who you buy your products from, and that's also part of why it's something I take every day. I put the pain cream on my wife's shoulders and neck every night before bed. Occasionally our kids will get a gummy if they need help before bed, but it's one of those things where I needed a product I could trust. And so I
Sure.
thought the best way to do that is to make it myself.
Mhm.
Today, our website is a wealth of information. It's a great resource if you want to learn more. GreenValleyNutrition.com. My story's on there. There's a bunch of information about our products and dosing. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us. There's a chat, there's email, you can call us. We're here to help. And we want to answer your questions and make you feel comfortable about this before you start a new supplement routine. But really, what it comes down to is a couple of things. First, you want to know the source. Where is the product coming from? Right? Is this company bringing someone else's product in from another state and putting their label on it? Are they using active ingredients manufactured in China? Right? Is the product clean? You want to know those answers. For us, we are based in Virginia. I'm working with over a dozen local growers here in Virginia. Everything's cultivated organically. And from there, we do everything in house. So we take the raw materials, we extract the oil, we purify and refine it into a form that's THC free. So if you're being drug screened for work or giving this to your kids or anything like that, there's zero risk. There's no THC at all. You'll pass a drug screening after taking this product. It's not a marijuana product.
Mhm.
Um, but we know that it's safe and clean because we have third party lab test results, which is the next point. If you cannot find a COA, a certificate of analysis on your product, you should probably ask yourself, like, what am I paying for, right? You want to know that what's on the label matches what's in the bottle. You want to know that it's free of contaminants, that it's safe if you're putting it in your body. And so all of our products have a link on the product page to the certificate of analysis for that product so that you can go and just review for yourself, like, hey, there's no microbiological contaminants, there's no residual solvents, all of these things that happen during the manufacturing process of any supplement. You want to look for that to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for, and two, that you're being safe about it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which we are very particular about.
Yeah.
Obviously, me being in the industry, specifically on nutraceuticals, Carrie too being on the oil side, we're very, very particular about quality.
Mm.
And just love your story, Ethan. Like it really is an inspiration to, see how God works through you, and is still using you really to get the word out and to help people. And thanks so much for being on, for sharing your story.
Yeah.
We'll link Green Valley in the show notes. If obviously it's a great resource. You can reach us at hello@cornerstoneintegrativehealing.com if you have more questions about how this might help with sleep or anxiety. But yeah, thanks again, Ethan. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody, have a great day. If this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we are praying for you.